Hello, it's Maya Andreasen, and today I would like to go over how you take a model that has been created from photogrammetry and you bring it into a 3D program, retopologize it, relay out the UVs for the retopped model, and bake out the textures and the normal mapping information to the low poly model. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to be using Maya 2024. Okay, so this is my new scene. I'm going to set my project just in case. So we are going to set it and I'm just going to save it now. Okay, and I like to have multiple versions, so version 01, version 02, version 02, 03 of a file just in case there's any crashing issues. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import the FBX of my photogrammetry model of a pastry. So I'm going to go to import and it is in here. I believe at the bottom. Here we go. So here's the pastry. Okay, so it's ginormous. It's pretty big. If you want to make it smaller, just remember that when you retop it and do all those things, you need to unparent it from the parent here and freeze transformations for everything. Otherwise, the transfer maps will not transfer properly. Now, I am going to make this smaller. So we're going to do this, and it's still pretty large. Actually, this is good. It's good enough. And when I take a look at this, this is how it's been scaled down. I'm going to freeze transformations, which is right here. I'm adding it to my shelf, which you hit Shift and Control at the same time as selecting an option to freeze transformations. Okay, so I froze transformation. If I have hit 6 on my keyboard, we see that the texture is there. It looks quite nice. And then if we turn on our topology, our wireframe unshaded, we can see that it's a really dense model. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to retopologize this. So I'm going to select this model. Now, Maya 2024 has a new retopology tool. So if we go into the modeling section and we go to mesh, you see that there's a retopologize option. So I'm going to go into it right now. And let's reset settings so we see everything. So I'm going to just use the default settings, target face count 1000. I'm not going to check. I am going to check keep original because we want to make a copy of this. We want to keep the original. That's going to be our high poly model. And then we have this new one. This is going to be our low poly model. And then I'm going to click retopologize. Ignore and continue. Should be fine. All right, so now we have a retopped model. So the next thing that I need to do, so now we have both our mesh transform, which I'm going to name pastry low poly, and then this one is going to be pastry high poly. All right, so now we have both. All right, so next what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this guy invisible. So I hit H on my keyboard, or Command H or Control H. You can hit any of those. And I'm going to go to UV editing, and you can see the UVs are kind of a mess here. And so what I want to do is I'm just going to lay out these UVs. So I'm going to go to UVs, and I'm going to do spherical. There we go. So I had to go in and manually select all of my faces to make sure that the UVs are selected and we can see them. So here we go. So here's our UVs. And then I'm going to optimize my UVs. So here they are. And let's turn back on the image, and we're going to double click this. And we're going to make it a bit smaller. So what I want to do is I want to make it so it's taking up the most amount of space here. Let me hit F to zoom in and make it a tiny bit bigger. All right. So obviously the texture is not showing up properly here. And it's not going to show up properly until we bake the texture information from the high poly to the low poly. So I'm going to go back to general here. And I'm going to go back to object mode, and I'm going to actually save this. Control S to save. And before we do create our transfer maps, and by the way, I just hit H to make the high poly visible again. I am going to save it as a different version. So I have my pastry high poly, I have my pastry low poly. Okay, I am going to delete history right here. You do want to make sure that in the channels, all of your translate, rotate, and values are 0, and your scale values are 1. Same with the high poly. Make sure your translate values are 0 and your scale values are 1. And the reason why we want to do that, and that one's fine too, the material is fine too. The reason we want to do that is when you bake textures, right? If your models are not located in the same space as one another, so they should be completely overlapping. If they are not, the bake will not take place properly because the computer will not be able to find that information to transfer it to the low poly version. So they have to be superimposed one on top of the other. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go into our rendering drop down here. So over here, this is on my the left side of my screen. We were in modeling, and then I went to rendering. We're going to go to lighting and shading, transfer maps, and I'm going to remove everything so we can start from scratch here. So my target mesh is going to be my pastry low poly, and my source mesh is going to be the high poly. So I'm going to select that in my channels box and click add selected. So that's my source, and I'm going to transfer all the information from my source to my low poly. So there's two maps that I want to make. I want to make a diffuse map, that's going to be my color map, and I want to make a normal map. That's going to be my high poly modeling information. So first I'm going to click diffuse, and then I'm going to change the file format to a PNG, and then I'm going to click this folder icon here because I want it to go to a specific folder. It's not going to the folder that I want it to go through to right now. So we're going to put it into our source images folder, and this is going to be pastry video because it's a video that I'm making, and I'm going to call it diffuse, and because it's a color map, and we're going to hit save. And then I'm also going to hit normal, so you can do both of these at the same time. And for my normal map, once again, I want this to be a PNG, and I'm going to go and save it. Oh, well, we're in the right place. Oh, it didn't change to PNG. All right, here we go. And it's going to be pastry video normal. All right, save. Okay, so for that normal map, we want to change under target mesh display to envelope. And for me, I made the envelope 4, and you can play around with this envelope. But bottom line is, if it's not totally covering the high poly model, then you're not going to get all the information you want. And what I found out was that 4 was about where it needs to be to get all that information. It looks like right here is a tiny bit that didn't get caught, so maybe 4.8. There we go. 4.6. Oh, no, 7. 4.8 it is. All right. Okay, so now that we have done this, I want this to create a new shader, and then I'm going to twirl down Maya common output. I'm making my mat width and height 2048 by 2048. I think by default it's 256, and that's really low resolution. So you're going to want to up it to at least 1K. the transfers in the world space and the sampling quality, I put it at high. And then I'm going to click bake and close. And then we're going to pause the video. And when we come back, we're going to take a look, see if it worked. Okay, so I'm back. It took a little bit longer than I thought because my computer was not happy with me trying to do 2 transfer maps at once. So I went back, I actually redid my UVs as you can see on the right, and I redid the transfer maps one at a time. And so here is my low poly version. And as you can see, it's got its color map on it. It also has a normal map attached to it. So if we go here, we can see that this is my diffuse, this is my bump, tangent space normals, and here is the normal map that is attached, which is great. And it is attached through the bump normal mapping file folder here. So they're both here and it worked great, and that's how we do it. And the high res is here as well. And that's how you create a retopped version of your high poly model, and you bake the textures and the maps down. Till next time, bye bye.